Hello, everyone. This is Usama Khilji. I'm just going to be joined by Katie from Youth Service America. Um, I'm a YES alumnus. I was part of the second batch of YES. So this was 2005 to 2006. So it's been around 15 years. I was on the YES program, and I am soon going to be joined by Katie from Youth Service America. So, meanwhile, it would be amazing if you guys could comment in and tell us where you're joining from. And if you're a YES alumni, what year you were YES alumni, and if you are a current YES student, where you are based. It would be great to know, more about what listeners we have here. I see there's Tumalia from Bosnia, and so somebody from Morocco, somebody from Turkey, and North Macedonia, Tunisia. Amazing. Iram from Islamabad, Pakistan. I am also based in Islamabad, Pakistan. So that is quite interesting. And somebody from Peshawar in Pakistan, alumni from Indonesia, Libya. Wow, this is amazing. It's everybody's here. This is what's amazing about the YES program. We always have so much diversity and so many people that join in. And one of my favorite things about the YES program is I was able to make so many friends. So whenever I'm traveling, I end up meeting somebody after 10 years, 12 years. Just 2 years ago, I met a very good friend of mine who, I met on the YES program, who was from Morocco. And now, so we're just going to be joined by Katie from Youth Service America. Hi, Katie. How are
Hi,
you
how
doing?
are you?
Good, thank you. We already have a lot of people tuning in. There's YES alumni, and there's current YES programs, and there's others. So super excited to get this going with you. I
Here.
hope you've been well.
Yeah, so far so good. Enjoying. We've had some really great sunny weather out here in DC. So I'm just trying to make use of that before we start getting a lot of rain.
Yeah, that's always a good window. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having.
Maybe Katie, you can give an introduction of yourself and Youth Service America to kick this off.
Of course, thanks, Usama. So my name is Katie Reusch. I am the Director of Partnerships at Youth Service America, which is a DC-based nonprofit. We work with youth, schools, and organizations, both in the US as well as abroad. And our focus is really on engaging youth in meaningful service projects as volunteers, but also as project planners and project leaders. And we do that through different activation campaigns. We have Global Youth Service Day coming up in about 2.5 weeks. We do offer different grants for both youth and organizations. We have a number of resources and trainings that I'm sure Usama and I will talk about in a little bit. And we try our best to recognize the work that all youth are doing across the world every day of the year, not just with Global Youth Service Day or through one of our other campaigns.
Thank you. That was a very brief but to the point introduction of Youth Service America. I remember as a YES scholar, when we are on our exchange year, we're supposed to do a certain number of hours. I think it was around 20 when I went. 20
Okay.
hours every month of community service, which is mandatory. And that was one of my favorite things to do because I got to meet so many different people. I used to volunteer in different places every month. One month I was volunteering with Meals on Wheels. So that's, delivering food to senior citizens who, need food and are not able to arrange it on their own. And, it's nice because they would look forward to seeing me every day and I would look forward to saying hi to them. And then I think I volunteered at the fire hall. So maybe if everyone who's joined can tell us during their Yes experience, what kind of community service projects they did, that would be super cool for us to know. So moving forward, can you tell us a bit about what Global Youth Service Day is? Because I'm sure a lot of people joining in are familiar, but some may not be.
Sure, of course. And like you mentioned, kind of being able to experience a number of different organizations. Global Youth Service Day is a great time to do that. So Global Youth Service Day dates back to, well, its origins, I should say, date back to 1988, where we originally had a campaign called A Year in the Life, where we had photographers go across the United States to capture images of youth serving their community, whether it's something like direct service, like you mentioned, delivering food through Meals on Wheels, or if it's something more philanthropic in nature, where people might be raising money or collecting donated items that they would then give to a charity in their community. So that's how it started. The following year, it evolved into National Service Day, so youth doing service in their communities. Again, we started in the U.S. just because that's where we're based. In 2000, we expanded it to Global Youth Service Day. Actually, surprisingly, after our CEO took a trip abroad and was asked, we know about National Youth Service Day, but why isn't there a global effort? And we realized that there are so many young people doing wonderful work around the world, and a lot of the issues that we're seeing in communities in the U.S. we're seeing in communities abroad, and vice versa. Um, so we really wanted to take that effort worldwide. So again, it's really about engaging youth in service projects, but it's also about recognizing and celebrating the work that they're doing year round. So Global Youth Service Day oftentimes serves as a jumping off point for longer term service projects, but it also serves as kind of a wrap up end point where everyone is celebrating the work that youth are doing, looking at their accomplishments, and just kind of really celebrating that youth are recognizing their own agency and can contribute to society outside of kind of your traditional avenues of voting.
Thank you. No, that was a great introduction to GYSD. I remember, when I came back to Pakistan after my year abroad in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So the in Pakistan, the alumni network, as in most other countries, is very active. And we celebrated Global Youth Service Day pretty much every year. And I think one of the years we did a bunch of different activities in the run up to the service day. And then we had, a lot of different groups of students come and present their projects to a large audience at a public library in Islamabad.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that was a fun event because you learn so much and you hear about so many projects that are so simple to do for
Mm-hmm.
anyone really around their community. And it's just, you never think about it. And once you do start thinking about it and seeing these projects, you're just like, okay, I can do this. And I think that's the beauty of community service. If you want to make a difference, you don't need anything. You just need the willpower. And you can do so much just with that. And then, let it grow organically. So, how can youth around the world become involved? I know, people like us have been involved here. So maybe you can tell us to the audience how they can get involved if they're not based in the US.
Of course, yeah, and we've seen so many projects from Yes alumni over the years. I know even before I started at YSA, and I mean any projects going anywhere from education to the environment and everything in between. So there's always a few different ways to become involved in Global Youth Service Day. Probably one of the easiest ways is to start your own project. And like you had mentioned, kind of seeing the range and the depth of projects. It can really be anywhere. It can be you doing a project on your own, to engaging a classroom, engaging 500 volunteers. Obviously, right now with the pandemic, we don't recommend engaging 500 volunteers, especially in person. But we've seen kind of how technology can now play a part. But so starting your own project. We also have on our website, if you go to GYSD for Global Youth Service Day.org, we actually have a map that is updated in almost in real time, that highlights projects that are going on across the world for Global Youth Service Day. And it also has information if projects are open to the public, how people can actually go ahead and join. We also have a number of partner organizations, again, kind of across the world, where if you are interested in participating with them, we do have their website linked on our site as well.
Yeah,
So
I see a lot of people in the chat. They're asking how they can get involved, and I hope that answers everyone's question. Thank you, Katie, for that.
you're welcome.
And are there resources available for implementing virtual projects? Because, especially you mentioned that these days with COVID, you can't really be doing in-person projects. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So we have some general resources. The one that I particularly recommend, especially to an audience that's international, is our Youth Changing the World Toolkit. We do have that available on our website, ysa.org/resources. And one of the things that I love about it is it takes you step by step through the full planning process, starting with investigation and preparing, kind of getting all of your facts together, thinking about what issues you want to cover, how you can use your strengths to connect to those issues. So I know personally, I love baking and I love books and I love traveling. So I would try to connect those three passions to an issue that I care about. So I might want to do some type of cookbook, and use proceeds from that to put towards a cause that I'm passionate about.
That's a great idea.
But what I love is that that toolkit is available in all 6 UN languages, as well as Italian and Portuguese. And we wanted to do that to make it really accessible, especially for participants for whom English is either not their first language or English is not a language that they speak or read. So that's a really great starting point. We also have on the GYSD page, we have examples of different projects that youth have implemented, and you can actually sort by the issue of interest, if you have any sparks or passions, and you can also sort by intensity level. We actually have a secret filter next to intensity level 3, where if you click that blank space, it'll come up with all of the projects that can be done virtually. Or projects that can be done at home, because we know sometimes you might want to get outside but do a project just with your family. So we have some ideas for that as well. But then we do have a page specifically for COVID resources, which is ysa.org/COVID.
Okay, no, that should be super helpful, and I hope everyone's keeping safe. If you have access to vaccinations, you're super privileged. Please get registered. If not, I hope you do soon, and continue to practice safety. So Katie, I'm just thinking, are there some examples of a successful GYSD project you can share? And once you've done that, maybe I can talk a bit about the ones I've done.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely, of course, if you are planning a Global Youth Service Day project, your health and your safety is number one. We don't want you to go ahead and jump into a large community event where everyone is in person, where there could be transmission. So of course we want to qualify that first and foremost. We've had so many incredible projects over the last, just in the 5 years that I've been at YSA. I would say one of the ones that I really enjoyed was last year. So of course, when Global Youth Service Day 2020 came around, it was about, at least in the US, it was about a month after we had our stay-at-home orders. So our grantees, our youth and caring adults had to really change up that script very quickly. One of our grantees, they are a youth-led organization. They are focused on gardening and providing fruit and vegetables and related produce to people in low-income communities who may be in food desert areas where they don't have access to grocery stores. They may receive government assisted food stamps. So the kind of things of that nature. So what they did is they had initially planned on doing an in-person community garden event. So rather than that, they purchased seeds for a wide range of plants, sent those out to youth who were interested in participating in their project. And then over Zoom or Facebook Live, I don't remember exactly the platform they used, they actually held a planting event where they taught students that wanted to participate how to grow the plants, how to care for them, how to harvest them. But they also spoke about the experiences and the challenges of people who are food insecure. So there was an educational component that was brought into the conversation, but then youth also were able to do that direct service where they were planting, and then they could later on, once the weather was warmer, they were able to then take those plants, plant them outside, grow their own respective gardens, and do the donations based on those plants.
That's a beautiful project, and it sounds quite sustainable. It's you know, some physical activity, there's social good, it's good for the environment, and it's addressing inequalities and inequities in our society. Wow, I'm super inspired.
Another thing I loved. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say one other thing I loved about that program is it's very cost effective. So we know that resources, particular funding, can be a barrier to participation in service. So things like that are low cost, or in some cases no cost, because sometimes people will donate the seeds. Are easy, low cost, no cost project ideas.
That's true, and I see a lot of people in the comments saying that, you know, they're inspired by this project. So maybe that's something, you know, a lot of you can implement. Yeah, I think we did a lot of cleanups. So once we took, you know, a bunch of students from different schools on a hike. So I live in Islamabad, which is the capital of Islamabad, and we have hills right by the city. So we took them on a hike, and on those trails, a lot of people often litter. So everyone had gloves, and they picked up a lot of trash, and then they went up to the top of the hill, and then they, you know, wrote pledges that they're not gonna litter ever. And that is sort of, you know, encouraging younger kids to get in the habit of finding a litter bin and, you know, throwing your trash there, but also serving as an example to other hikers. You know, so if they see little kids picking up trash, they'll be more mindful next time of not throwing it away. And once my friend, you know, had this project over the summer, so I think we did this for 3 summers, where we would help a lot of students from underprivileged backgrounds who went to school that were not really good or attentive towards their students. So we would help them with their summer work and help them with their concepts in math, science, English, and Urdu. So we really enjoyed that because it was twice a week, you know, for 2 months. So it's not too much time, and we were able to learn a lot and then teach people a lot of things. So, Katie, my next question is, you know, any advice you have for youth who might be interested in participating in GYSD? What should really be the first step that they take when planning, you know, a GYSD Global Youth Service Day project, especially if they're doing it for the first time?
Sure. So I would recommend, probably first and foremost, is figure out the issue that you want to address. Whether it's hunger, poverty, education, the environment. We do see a lot of environmental focused projects for Global Youth Service Day, just because there is there's usually an overlap between Global Youth Service Day and Earth Day in April. And I know, I believe April is Earth Month or something to that effect. I might not have the name exact, but I would say first and foremost, figure out what type of issue you want to address in your community. Think about, are there any groups in your community that are already addressing that issue? Thinking about how you might be able to leverage support from those groups. So for example, one of the organizations that we work with are very, very focused on marine conservation. And so they frequently have all different types of projects ranging from beach cleanups to awareness types of projects. They do underwater mapping. So, you know, if youth are interested in those types of projects, we tend to encourage them to look at similar projects that are going on, even if it's only to serve as an inspiration. We're not necessarily saying, hey, you have to work with this organization. You know, just you might want to consider looking into them, seeing some of the work that they've done in the past, and maybe, you know, is that something that you would be interested in replicating or modifying to fit your own needs. So definitely kind of look at what's going on in the community around you, seeing what resources are available. That's usually always a great start because it gives you an idea as to the feasibility of your project.
No, that's a great point because, yeah, it's good to do a bit of homework before you start. I see there's a lot of discussion in the comment section about the the next yes cycle. And I know students are getting letters and finding out. So all the best to all of the students who are who've applied. I hope all of you get selected. My next question is, you know, linked to what you just said, that, you know, a lot of times we plan projects, but sometimes when we start to implement them, we do come across some obstacles. So there could be some challenges. So can you talk a bit about a few obstacles that youth might face in implementing their projects, and, you know, what can they sort of do to make sure that they're able to see the projects through?
Definitely, and especially with the pandemic, we've had a lot of those. We've seen a lot of new challenges. So some of the bigger ones that we regularly see. So I always encourage everyone to have a plan B just in case. A big one that we usually see is weather. We have, because we have grantees across so many communities around the world, you know, sometimes people are doing projects in an area where April, you're still getting snow. We've had projects that have been impacted by snow where the project was supposed to take place outside. Where I'm from, we had snow in May last year.
Wow.
Yeah, so having a backup plan. So, you know, if you are looking to make sure you have an idea about an indoor space if you're planning an outdoor project, whether that be, you know, four walls and a roof, or if it's, I know sometimes parks have outdoor shelters that you could host a project in to protect yourself from the rain. So that's always one of them. Another one is funding. We know that, of course, funding always helps with projects. We have a specific resource on fundraising, both thinking about money itself, but also gifts in kind, or if people are able to donate their time. You know, maybe you really need help promoting your event on social media. Maybe someone who is really proficient in that area could donate their time and help to promote your project. So thinking about some innovative ways that funding can help support your project, or outlets you can go to. Oftentimes, again, if you are reaching out to businesses, sometimes they have a philanthropic arm that would be willing to donate funds, items, or time to help support your initiative. And then again, with COVID-related challenges, thinking about how you can use technology to your advantage. I know you're in Islamabad, I'm in Washington, D.C. that's not necessarily something that GYSDs of the past would have been able to take into consideration. Usually it's, okay, I'm in DC, I'm going to work in my community, while Usama is in Islamabad and he's going to work in his community. With technology, we can now think about how we can make our projects more global. We always say, think globally, act locally, but now we can even add in act globally as well.
That's a great point. And just going back to, fundraising, um, one of the nicest things that I learned during my yes year was, how to raise funds for your community service projects.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we did, I remember I was placed in Pennsylvania, and we had hoagie sales. So I would go around the neighborhood, knock on doors, ring bells, and ask, "Hey, I'm doing a fundraiser for hurricane survivors, for example, or earthquake survivors in Pakistan." Once we did one of those, and would you be willing to order some hoagies, and the proceeds from the sales of those hoagies will go to supporting this cause and these people. And a lot of people will be like, yeah, sure, they want to have a nice hoagie meal and also help someone. And in Pakistan, in a lot of schools, we've had bake sales, and I think that's a very common form of fundraising, especially for young people, because everyone loves brownies, everyone loves cakes,
Yes.
everyone loves pizza. And if it's homemade and it's delicious, you're selling it, you're having like a little party, and you're also raising money for a good cause. So yeah, these are just some of the ways that you can raise funds, and I think now it's become a lot easier because now you just put out a word on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram saying, "Hey, I'm doing this project. Is anyone interested in donating money?" You can have a Kickstarter. You can put out your PayPal or other details or bank account details, or people can send in donations. But just make sure that when you are fundraising, that you're accounting for every penny that's donated, and also being transparent about it so people know that the money is being spent in the right way. So, but social media makes that so easy because you can just put up an Excel sheet or a photograph, and then you can take photographs of the stuff you've done with it, the purchases, the receipts. So I think accountability also becomes a lot easier um, online. And yeah, Katie, I know you spoke about a few projects that you'd seen. I'm interested to know. I know last year, GYSD was during COVID also. So were there some interesting virtual projects that you saw last year that you would like to share with us?
Sure. So the seed project I had mentioned was one of the virtual projects that took place.
Ah.
One of the other ones, and I've participated in similar, I guess service related, kind of that philanthropic arm, are fun runs, virtual fun runs. So when I talk about things that thinking of how you can use your passions and your interests in helping create your service project. We know a lot of young people are, and adults too, are really interested in sports, and any type of sports, anything from soccer or football, to dodgeball or running. So we had a few projects where, rather than have an in-person 5K, they would have the project leaders. You would run your 5K in your respective community, and then afterwards take your selfie. Hopefully your face wasn't too red or too damp after your run. And then send in your time, and then they would provide. They would do social media shout outs to people who had the best times in different age brackets, and then just like they would for an in-person run, any registration funds would go towards the charity of their choice. Yeah, so like I mentioned, with the fun run, it was a really great way to raise money for a cause that these youth leaders were interested in, but then also kind of a fun way to at least take a break and go outside for a little bit, because I know I know, well, obviously, I know certain communities had full-on lockdowns, but I know here we were still able to, if you were going outside to exercise or to walk your dog, you were able to go outside. So it kind of was a little bit, you had a little bit of a break and kind of move away from the four walls that you've been confined to for the past however many weeks or months.
No, that's a great idea. And I can talk about a few projects that some of my friends have done in Pakistan.
Mhm.
For those joining in, we're talking about Global Youth Service Day, which is soon in April. And this is a discussion on how young people can start projects to help their community. And how, Katie's been telling us, she's here from Youth Service America, and she's been telling us how you can get involved and do project and serve your community. So in here, because of the lockdown, there is a very grave economic impact on people, where a lot of people have lost their jobs, and especially in communities where there's a lot of poverty, a lot of families were unable to even afford to get meals for their children and family, unfortunately. So what a lot of people did when the lockdown started is do fundraisers, donate money in order to buy basic food packages, where you give them a lot of, a package that has your basic essentials that you need for, say, a couple of weeks to a month, and put those together and then distribute them in communities to families that, may be living below the poverty line, maybe essential workers, or maybe they've lost their jobs and they're not able to sustain their families. So in that way, you're able to help a family be fed in the short term, while you figure out what's to happen in the longer term with them. And I think, that's also a COVID sensitive project in which you're serving your community, but of course one has to be careful about not coming into contact with too many people when making those packages or when distributing them. But I'm sure that's something that people can definitely benefit from. So Katie, just, I know we've had lots of questions, but how can GYSD inspire the spirit of volunteerism and connect youth across the world? Because I think that's one of the interesting things that the YES program does and other exchange programs do, which is connecting people. So I'm just curious how GYSD, can do that.
Definitely, definitely. So I know I mentioned earlier before we had the internet cut out, was that one thing that I love about Global Youth Service Day is that you can really see how issues that might be impacting the area in the world that you live in, how you're seeing those same issues impact youth in other areas of the world.
Mm,
I know one Global Youth Service Day, we had youth in Minnesota, which here in the United States is known as the land of 10,000 lakes. Um, they realized that some of the lakes, the water levels were actually dropping over the course of a decade. And they realized that in other parts of the world, a lot of countries face so they were able to see that, okay, so we're not the only, even though we're the land of 10,000 lakes and we have all of this fresh water, there are so many people around the world that are facing the same issue, either to the same degree or it's an even greater challenge. So that's one thing that I absolutely love is you can see kind of these connections that you're not the only that you're not alone in the challenges that you're seeing in your community, that others around the world are seeing those same challenges. And then I think it's also great because with recognition, we do post as much as we can using the hashtag GYSD21, and really sharing the stories so everyone around the world can see how youth are being change makers and agents of change in their respective communities. And we kind of, while GYSD is the 23rd to the 25th of April, I noticed a couple people mentioned that they are celebrating Ramadan during that time. So thinking about how we can also continue that spirit of Global Youth Service Day outside of just that 23rd to 25th of April timeframe.
Yeah, and I think Ramadan's the perfect time for a lot of people, to be thinking about other communities around them and about being generous and about volunteering time and efforts for the benefit of the community. So it's a good conjunction. But yeah, thank you so much, Katie. This was a super helpful interview. I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope everyone who's joined in uh, was able to benefit from this discussion. And we certainly encourage you to join in commemorating Global Youth Service Day. It's just a good excuse to do some good work. And you have the entire month of April, so why not? And then there's a lot of resources that Katie has talked about that you can access on the Youth Service America website, and a lot of other resources related to Global Youth Service Day where you can share a lot of your work also. So we really hope that more and more people will join in the spirit of community service and share their stories. You can use the hashtag. Katie, is it GYSD21?
Yes, GYSD 21.
21.
Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, Katie, do you have anything to say to everyone as parting words?
I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Usama, to the YES program. Thank you for inviting us to speak with you today. I've loved I've loved kind of seeing all of the wonderful work that you, the students, the current students, as well as the alumni are doing throughout the year. I know we've seen a lot of the Global Youth Service Day projects that alumni have hosted, and just kind of seeing the incredible impact. But again, we just want to say thank you for all of the incredible work that you do, and thank you for bringing us into the arms of the YES program.
Well, no, thank you. It's a huge community, so there's lots of welcoming arms all around the world. And we're glad you were able to share a lot of your wonderful work with us. And yeah, everyone look forward to the next session on Yes program page, which I believe. So until then, stay safe, take care, and bye bye.
Bye, everyone.